Welcome to Paranormal Latte Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz. Sit back and relax with us. Grab yourself a really good drink. Spend an hour and let's delve into a world of chatter about the mysteries of the unexplained. Whether you are a skeptic or a believer makes no difference. It's not always in your imagination. Enjoy your day. Now that was good. We are broadcasting on the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Networks 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the audience, United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Networks, its hosts, affiliates, and or Paranormal Latte Podcast, Paranormal Universal Press LLC, and Diamond Point Entertainment LLC. This show is pre-recorded. Now that was good. Good day, everyone, and thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Paranormal Latte Podcast. My name is Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz. I am the host and the producer of this show. Well, if you didn't get a chance to watch or listen to last week's show, please go back and watch and listen. And the reason why is because I gave a very long foundation about myself and how I grew into my abilities and what I've been experiencing and continue to experience. And so I think that you will gain from that. Now, it's pretty much video, and I know most of you at the end will go, well, where's this host that we're going to listen to each week or watch? I am right here, and I promise I will be here. But that one was a special show because it was the first show. Now, going forward, people ask me, what is your show going to be about? Well, it's going to be about paranormal, otherworldly, anything you can imagine, metaphysical, consciousness, all the realms, a lot of phenomena, different types. And so I think you're going to find each week to be very different from each other and also very interesting. And so I am very fortunate. I have done this since 2016. I have interviewed a lot of people, and tonight I've clipped out little segments from some of my interviews from those previous shows, and I'm going to introduce you to these individuals. And so it could happen that every week I have a clip, or not, or just a guest that comes on and to intrigue you and hopefully strike up a chord of interest. So who do we have on tonight? Well, let's see. We've got Truthseekah. He is a Christian mystic. He's also an artist. He came into his awakening, and so you're going to find him to talk a little bit about his experiences. We have JJ Rose. She is a psychic. I believe she's a psychic medium, and she also has a long lineage of individuals in her family on her maternal side, where she her mother had the gift and her mother had the gift, and it goes all the way back from there. In fact, if I recall this correctly, I believe she traced herself back all the way to the Salem witch trial. So we'll want to meet her, of course. Let's see, who else do we have on this show? Not in any particular order here. We have John Kurth. He is a researcher from the Rhine Institute who gives us a very different perspective about what he thinks is happening out there regarding our abilities. And we also have Kelly Brickel. She is a psychic medium and numerologist. And so on another show, I had her actually do my birth year numbers, and she was very accurate. She's very good at what she does, and she just loves to do numerology. So she'll be fascinating. And then finally, I believe the last one is Stephen Spur. Now, Stephen Spur came into his awakening just before he turned 20, but due to a concussion, and then all of a sudden, his awakening opened up, his abilities shot off like a rocket, and he can't turn it off ever since. And he actually communicates with your deceased loved ones. So we're going to take note of each of those as we move along here. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's show, because it's just a nice way of getting used to me, getting used to my style, and of course, knowing that for each week we're going to have perhaps something introduced that's just a little bit different and not necessarily like the norm. So as they say, let's get started. Stay tuned. According to my guest this evening, Truthseekah, there are things that you can do on this side of the field that have significant reactions in the spirit realm. Exploring the existence of life beyond the mundane realities, his book will help you understand that there are doors or pathways which can be opened unknowingly. Truthseekah is a Christian mystic, Amazon best-selling author, visionary artist, and seer. Also, a songwriter, Truthseekah has released over 200 songs, each one relating to the subject of spirituality. His journey has brought him through research and experience with the occult, paranormal, Christianity, ufology, and the spirit realm. This has led him into many mystical encounters with God, angels, spirits, and many other supernatural beings. Truthseekah has made it his life work to understand these spiritual realms and relate it back to people in a practical way. His desire is to help people embrace the reality of the spiritual world so they can walk in supernatural freedom in their lives. Please welcome tonight to my show, the one and only Truthseekah.
We talked a little bit off air about sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And I really trace everything back to an encounter that I had when I was around 4 years old, waking up in the middle of the night with beings in my room, laying on top of me in the middle of the night. And I don't know if I was too afraid to speak. I don't know if I couldn't speak. I know I was too afraid to. These huge shadow beings pinning me down to the bed. And I didn't want to move or cough or anything like that, because I didn't want them to know that I was awake and I saw them. So as I began to get a little bit older, but even in adolescence, I think that encounter led to the different movies that I would watch and I would be drawn to with sleepovers with my cousins and friends and stuff like that. Always going to the horror and always going to the paranormal thrillers and stuff like that as a young kid, and watching all of that stuff. So I think I started asking the bigger questions early on, asking that at sleepovers, asking that, telling the story around campfires and stuff. And then eventually you would hear people saying, yeah, well, my dad had it happen to him. And he woke up in the middle of the night and there was this man or this creature in the room. And then, as a kid, you're like, well, tell me more. And you hear different stories. So I trace everything back to that, like why I'm in what I'm into, and still asking those same questions to this day. What was that,
Yeah. I have heard one of the things that seems to be a common age, which is real interesting. I came into what I would say my awakening probably around age 3, 4, 5, where I started to realize that things were happening, that I was told by a psychic that she felt that I had already started having experiences at the age of 2. Now, I can't verify that because, obviously, my my awakening became at 3, 4, 5. But you bring up a good point, because it seems like a lot of people that I talk with, they go back to those earlier ages here. But most importantly, what I think is what is on people's mind right now is that when you say you saw these beings, are you able, or do you have recall regarding what you actually saw?
No, yeah. As far as what it looked like, it was silhouettes that were darker
Yep.
than the blackest spots in the room, in the shadows. So they were shadows that were darker than the rest of the shadows. I felt their presence on each side of me, pinning me down, but they were just like these big lumps, and they would kind of move a little bit, and just right on each side of my chest. So as far as seeing anything else, and remembering it, I don't.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever express this to your parents at the time that you had this type of experience? And if you did, what was their reaction?
No, I don't think I talked about it until I was a teenager with my sister.
Okay.
And she started talking about these kind of experiences too. And I remember her telling me that she was talking to one of her friends late night one night, just talking about God and life and weird stuff, and she told him about my experience. Yeah, my brother had this thing come in the room or whatever, and she was just talking to him, and he started crying like a little baby. He started tearing up, getting choked up. She's like, "What's wrong?" Yeah. He said, "Well, I had the exact same thing happen to me as a kid, but I was too afraid to tell anybody that they'd think I was crazy or making it up or something." So, that's one of the reasons why I do talk about this stuff, because you hold a lot of that stuff in. There's really no words for it, even at that young age. It's kind of like this thing, almost in hindsight, you're like, hey, what was that? I don't know if that was normal, or, and there's a lot of things, I guess, when you're young that happen, and you're like, hey, that's not normal.
This is a very interesting clip for a number of reasons. Truthseekah brings up a couple points that many of us can probably relate to. The first thing he talks about is sleep paralysis. And he also talks about this heavy feeling that he had on his chest. So I can talk from experience that not everything is sleep paralysis. And I know that because of the 5 houses that I have lived in, house number 2 became very, very haunted and very nasty at the point that I put it up for sale and left. There was actually, I recognized that there was a ghost in this house, or I brought one home with me from one of my adventure trips. And I befriended it. I said, well, if you're a nice ghost, you can stay here. If you're a mean ghost, you have to go. Well, guess what it chose to do? It chose to act nice to me for a very long time. Don't know if it was jealous or what, but I can also tell you that in investigating the room, it was also sleeping between me and my husband every night. Now, if that's not a little bit creepy, but there was one night when, instead of it attacking my husband, turned around and started choking me very, very badly. And I woke up 3 nights in a row, and I never had it before, and I have never had this since. But I woke up, literally gasping for a lot of air, and I actually felt the handprints go around my neck. And so not everything is sleep paralysis. Not only that, I would like to caution you and just tell you it's not good to befriend a ghost in your house, because you don't know what you're dealing with. And I don't know if this ghost was just friendly for a while and turned mean, or if something else came in and it just decided to get rid of the other one and take its place. It's really hard to say what exactly I went through on that one. So I'm just cautioning you on that. Another thing he brings up is these dark shadows in the room. Yep, I have dealt with a minimum, anyway, that I can recall, 4 now. I'm just remembering another one. There were 4 dark shadows it's darker than dark, which is how it's described when a person actually sees a dark shadow entity. I've seen a wisp go across my hallway, about 2 feet tall, darker than dark. Went into my husband's office. That's one. I photographed one in an antique train car a year ago, actually, almost to the day. There was one in a church that actually tripped me as I was leaving it. I was there preparing to photograph a wedding, and it was dark, and you think a church is safe, and it's not always safe. And then the other one was in Europe, in one of the places I stayed at, where I actually saw one drift across my room in the light of my computer. So that was very interesting. And the third point that he brings up, which I thought was very interesting too, was that as a child and whomever, even now, even as adults, a lot of us hold this stuff in. We don't talk about it. We don't want to be known as anything, a little odd, crazy. But there are more people out there that have had these experiences but are too afraid to bring them up because, again, sometimes this is religion-based, and if you start bringing them up and talking about it, then all of a sudden some people believe that you can actually make it worse. And so I thought these were very interesting points that he brought up. All right, stay tuned. JJ Rose is up next. People often ask the question, how far do you remember back in your younger years? And the answer is usually, perhaps maybe around anywhere after 3 years old. But my guest this evening has one up on many. At the young age of 6 years old, my guest this evening, JJ Rose, was already coming into not only her awakening, but her special gifts passed on to her. JJ Rose is a medium. She is a psychic. She's an energy clearer, an entity remover. She knows a lot about psychometry, telepathy, dream precognition, and she is not only a white witch, but she is a non-denominational ordained minister. JJ believes her God, spirit, and universe guides help her in what she is needed for. May that be giving a message to somebody, or may that be a healing where someone is in distress and they need to have better understanding of their situation. JJ is also an empath, someone who can feel the stresses and the strains and the happiness of what others have a tendency to give off within their own energy fields. JJ's goal is to help others learn more about themselves so they can be self-reliant in their own intuitions. JJ feels her specialty is entity and energy clearing and entity removal. Yes, as in exorcisms. We had a lot to talk about this evening, and it was a very interesting discussion from top to bottom. So please sit back and enjoy and meet my special guest, JJ Rose.
Okay, well, I'm a little different than most people with their origin stories because I've been like this my entire life. Mm-hmm. I come from a long lineage on both sides where everyone was like me and then some, and it was understood. It was talked about privately within the family unit. But one of my earliest memories is I was maybe 6 months old.
Wow.
And I was at a daycare center that my parents would take me to. And there was a special room when I needed a nap that they would put me kind of in a little, what we would call like a carrier now, and put me down to nap. And the woman who ran the place had 2 Siamese cats, and they would come and sit next to me. Mm-hmm. Now, years later, when I'm about 6, 7 years old, we're in the grocery store and we end up running into the woman who did the daycare. And she's so excited to see me grown up. And she goes, "Oh, do you remember me?" And I said, "Yes." And she kind of looks a little strange. And I described the room to a T and her cats. Mm-hmm. And the last time I had seen her, I was 7 months old.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. And most people don't have that recollect. Probably most 2 years and younger. I think I've only met one other person who believes she had an experience at about 1.5 years old, but never at the baby point like you. That's interesting. So you come from a lineage of this your abilities. That's very fascinating just to know that. And sometimes people are wondering if you got a strong dose of it through your genetics, or whether or not you're all about the same. Did you ever have a discussion with your family, or the ones that had these abilities, about where their gifts were at, and if you were as strong, if not stronger?
It changes through time, right? Because obviously, the way that I believe is that you're given gifts during time frames when they're needed, but also when you have the maturity to use them properly.
Okay.
The movie Firestarter is a great example, right? You don't want to give that ability to a child who is going to react to everything with that intense childish anger.
Yeah.
So a lot of my gifts have kind of grown over time. There were just certain things that I instinctually knew. And because everyone in my immediate close family had them too, it was just normal for us. Like, things moving around the house without people moving them was normal. We would see people come in and out of the house that weren't physically there in our capacity and talk about them. So I had a really wonderful growing up where that was fostered. I was taught, how to harness it, how to control certain things, not to talk about it with everyone, because obviously I'm an older generation where, I couldn't really even be open with all of my talents and who I am until maybe about 10, 15 years ago. It was still somewhat kind of shied away from or frowned upon. So the society we live in now, where people can be so open with their gifts, is amazing and wonderful. But you're my first physical interview that I've ever done where I've shown my face. Almost everything I've done before, I kind of hide behind the scenes. And the reason I agreed to do this with you is I had done a physical convention that I went to, and 7 days from the day that I showed my face in public, your invite came in. And obviously the number 7 is Spirit's way of saying, okay, we're doing this now. So yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm flattered, first of all. Secondly, you're in a safe space, but I can't guarantee that who might contact you after the show is over would put you back in a safe space. But, she and I had talked about this a little bit before the show, that, we're pretty good at figuring out who's a good bet and who's not out there. And that's one of the risks that we have, including myself, by the way, when I speak in person, or you never know who's in the audience. And I've run into that a few times with some very interesting people. And also, even when my shows are just over like regular radio shows as well, because I also, like you, have actually been very shy about coming forth, even with myself over time, because my background would not allow that. I mean, working in law and then working as a college professor, sorry, you don't talk about it. Yeah. Although my gifts were really rampant in the college classroom, which I talk about once in a while, it was very difficult to live that life, knowing things that were happening around me there. So I congratulate you on being on a safe show. You'll be okay. Just air to caution once we're done, depending on who wants to reach out. So let's...
Duly noted, and thank you.
Yes. Well, do you find that your gifts are more on the maternal side, or did it not matter? I've been hearing lately maternal. Where do you think which side do you think yours came from?
Both.
Oh,
definitely both. The fact that It's interesting because we've kind of traced it back, and my parents would have met one of 8 different ways.
Okay.
There were so many interesting kind of collisions there, just with people they knew and their paths, how they crossed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of inevitable. I always joke that if I had come out with no gifts whatsoever from the lineage I'm from, I would have known I was adopted. So,
yeah, probably, right? Yeah.
But the gifts were extremely strong on both sides, and going back generations. I know many stories from both lineages. My mother's side, we actually found out, well, I found out some years ago watching the History Channel that I'm a direct descendant from one of the women who was hung in the Salem witch trials.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. A little bit of a touchy topic for me in the past. I've always felt some kind of way about that. But when I started researching even more, I found out I was actually related to 3 people from that time period, because, they were settlers, right? So there weren't a ton of them that came over, and everyone was kind of related to everyone. Mm-hmm. But that definitely explained my passion for those types of atrocities and making sure that people would understand, why are you scared of the witches and not scared of the people that were burning them, based off what a 12-year-old child stated.
Yeah, interesting. And also, I'm wondering, how is your experience going through school? Because, it was the same. Now I wasn't aware. My judgment and everything, just kind of my perceptions kind of developed over time. So now I'm able to look back and I'm able to identify better what was actually probably an experience and what was not. But back then, everything was discounted in my day. It's your imagination. This doesn't exist. Don't talk about it. The whole 10 yards. And religion was the base of which I grew up. Now it's a little bit more spirituality. We have, a lot more things now, which I'm glad about because it's helpful. But the stuff that might have happened in high school or even whatever, I just discounted as being just me. How did it feel for you growing up in your teen years and stuff and knowing you had some of these gifts?
Well, again, I hearken back to, because it was talked about from a very young age in the family to kind of keep certain things private. Mm-hmm. There were very few people who really knew the extent. And even still, there's people that I've known since I was in, grammar school who still don't even fully comprehend everything. That being said, school was an interesting time. And as a child, having a read-in to what was going on with other people, there was kind of a dichotomy, because on one end, I would be extremely compassionate and empathetic towards the people that everyone else kind of ousted, because I understood what was going on with them, right? And then there was this other side where the bullies who were just mean to be mean, right? There was really even no back. I ended up getting in trouble one day because this boy was taunting me, and it was relentless. It was day after day after day. And, finally I turned around and I said, you're the reason why your parents are getting divorced.
Carolina. His 20 years of professional technology experience and 10 plus years as a professional researcher provide a unique insight into the integration of technology and parapsychological research, where his research includes explorations into subtle energies of the body, including psychic healing, the energy behind psychokinesis, poltergeist activity, and other unconscious effects on electronic devices, and measurements of biophotons, otherwise known as ultraviolet light, from energy healers. We had a lot to talk about this evening, so sit back and put on that thinking cap, because we're going to go on a bit of a journey. And indeed, if you are what he calls an exceptional experiencer, you will want to take note of all the different illustrations we talk about in this show tonight. Please welcome my guest, John G. Kurth. Have you guys ever studied anything about this pineal gland at all?
So the pineal gland is something that Edgar Cayce spoke about it quite a bit, and it's actually towards the center of the brain. It's there's a spot in the center of the brain where this is. We don't know that it's related to psi in any way, whether it's related to ESP. I have heard people talk about the calcification of the pineal gland, and that was something Edgar Cayce spoke about. But in terms of actual scientific evidence to support it, some biology, there's nothing that we found that really connects the two. There has been some research that's been done to see if, can we see any activity in that part of the brain whenever people are having psi phenomena? But nothing's been really formalized too much. Finding the connection between biological aspects of our body and these experiences, that's a really interesting topic, and that will help to give us more information about how it works, and perhaps why certain people have these experiences and others don't. One of the studies I'm working on, that I was just finished working on actually, is related to that, looking at physiological correlates to different sorts of activity within the body that indicate healing is occurring. So these are definitely areas we follow, but the pineal gland in and of itself, we haven't found that direct connection that Edgar Cayce spoke about so clearly.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And you bring up another one here that I have given credit to other things, and you talk about healing, self-healing aspects. Now, in my case, I shouldn't be here right now. I had COVID for 8 months. I had every symptom that they described down to a T, including losing half of my hair. So I'm very grateful that it grew back. But the thing is, I was so sick, I nearly died twice. I passed out once, and I believe that something was out there. We did a lot of praying, my husband and I, every single night to try to give me the strength to turn around. But there were times it was pretty bad, and almost didn't make it. And now to this day, when I look back, I'm not sure, a lot of people say, well, I give credit to God. I give credit to my higher powers. I give credit to something else. And I don't know. It wasn't just that. I had cancer. I had an experience in Las Vegas. I was there this is where I write my books. I was on the 60th floor of a very top-notch hotel. And I looked out the window one night and I said, I was there by myself because that's what it's easier for me to work. But I looked out the window and I said, maybe I will see a UFO flying by tonight or something crazy like that. Well, within 15 minutes after I said that, my room started to act up. Lights were flickering. Mechanics were not working. Nothing electrical was turning on anymore. And I found myself blacking out and then waking up the next day feeling incredibly refreshed, like something had cleansed me. And went home. 2 months later, they discovered cancer in me, but the doctor said that I was a miracle, that they discovered that. Had a psychic over to my house because I was having a lot of poltergeist activity in my home that was very noticed, and she brought up this thing about, a couple of years ago, you were in a hotel room and you had a visitation by something extraterrestrial that was there to clean your blood. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So you see, and who do I give credit to? God? Do I give credit to myself? When the doctor said, you're a miracle, you are a miracle, I scoffed at him, and then he basically put his face right in 2 inches from mine and said, you're going to have to listen one more time here. You're a miracle. So I'm going to throw this back at you, John, because these things lead people into confusion. They don't know where the healing might be coming from. They don't know if it's within themselves. They don't know if they should thank God or something outerworldly for helping to save them. And my list continues with being saved and healed. But now I'm going to have you take it from there.
So it's interesting you should ask me this, because I'm teaching a course right now on energy healing and psychokinesis. And my next class that I'm going to be teaching this week is all about the different methods that people approach healing from. Everything from Reiki to healing touch to therapeutic touch to there's Qigong. All of these have different mechanisms and different ways that they approach healing. When you're talking to healers, they'll often talk about themselves as if they are providing energies or providing something to another person, sending some healing activity or healing energies to another person. In those cases, sometimes the healers feel like they are the agent of healing and sending it. At other times, some healers look at it as if they are a channel. Mm-hmm. And that there's an outside entity or outside agent, whether it be God, whether it be, the Pleiades or whatever it might be, that is coming through them and directing the healing. A lot of people talk about the Virgin Mary sending healing energies through them and bringing that to another person. So this is just another channel or another way of exploring the same phenomena. There are other people who believe that all healing is self-healing. Mm-hmm. And there's a man named Bill Bankston who has done some amazing work in healing recently, looking at mice and using energy healing on mice, and actually, this sounds crazy, but curing cancer in mice. And not only curing it, but then the mice cannot be infected with cancer. And this is very, very hard science that he's doing with this. Using energy healing, or using an energy cure is what he would call it. But he says there's no energy involved. It's actually people or mice are healing themselves. And all he's doing is providing the environment to allow it to happen. Mm-hmm. So by presenting some information to the individual who is the target of the healing, giving them some information that allows them to be comfortable with having the healing happen themselves. Health is the natural and perfect state of a human being. When people come to realize that, he offers whatever they need to reach that state to allow the healing to occur. Mm-hmm. So these are different ways that you can look at healing. Now, do you relate it to somebody else? You can. From my perspective, if the healing happens, I'm happy. I don't care where it's coming from. I'm just happy that it's happening. I'm happy that it's helping people, and I hope that it continues. So be grateful for what's occurring. That's what I would say. Just be grateful.
a difference between a psychic and a medium. Could you explain the differences between them?
Sure, absolutely. So I do both. I specialize in psychic work. I have the most natural flow in that work, I feel. And usually people will kind of be one more versus the other. Mm-hmm. There's some people who are very much both. But yeah, people have their strengths, right? So my strength is psychic. I am a medium too. I talk to the other side and get impressions from the other side. I help people develop that side of themselves too, because I've done that for many years. I have a lot of passion in that work as well. So the difference is a psychic, you'll connect to energies that are on Earth, that are incarnate. So a soul can be many things. It's an internal state, and either the soul is living out a life currently that is local with the energies on Earth, or it's in another dimension, it's in another plane, and it might be on the other side because the soul has passed from Earth and it's back to, you could say, heaven or somewhere else, or even a different plane that they're living a full other life on. But if you're going to a different dimension or a different plane, like if you're connecting to the other side, you are a medium. You're a bridge between this world and the other world that soul is at. And you're basically saying, hey, I'm going to hold space for both of you so that the connection can get through. If it's like the sitter wanting to talk to their loved one, or a soul coming to talk to their loved one, you're going to say like, hey, I'm aware of both of you, so I'm going to help translate. I'm going to help hold space so you can communicate. A psychic, that's a soul to soul connection, but you're going to pick up on different impressions because there's so much of the physical body a part of it, as well as an emotional state and lessons that are very present. You know, you don't go over someone's full life necessarily as much. Sometimes you do, but the healings and the reasons and the type of energies are just different versus someone who is present as opposed to someone who is in a different plane.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that you have most of the clairs? When we talk about clairs, we're talking about clairaudient, which is your ability to hear, clairsentient, which is your ability to feel, clairvoyant, which is your ability to see the future. I know there's a clairsentient. I don't know if that also goes with your ability to sense and or whatever. Would you say you're all of them?
I think everyone is. Honestly, it's just a matter of what in our awareness and understanding has unlocked that for us. Mm-hmm. I think everybody has access to any type of energy stream. It's just we're predominant in things. Mm-hmm. I started out when I got into this work. Once I started getting the ball rolling, I started being very, very visual. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, it was like a knowing. It's like, oh, I just kind of know something. It wasn't necessarily feeling based. It was just like, it's in my head. Let's talk about it. Right. And then it developed into, like I said, the visual. And then now, like, I'm very feeling based with physical, like sensations as well, or emotional feelings as well. And I get sound. But all of that was kind of there before, but, you know, it was just one was more heightened and one more had my attention primarily. But honestly, I feel like everybody has all of them. That's just my personal.
Yeah, well, and some people have them and they just don't recognize them, or they're too distracted to think about them. They just, kind of go by the seat of their pants. And I couldn't agree with you more. It's just like, I don't know, not everyone is made for this type of work. People may have the abilities to be able to become this type of work, but not everybody is made for this type of work. So I'm curious, so when you gave your very first psychic reading to somebody, I don't know if you can remember who that was a long time ago, because I'm sure you've done many since on a psychic reading basis. How did you feel about that? Because, I'd be a little bit nervous, and maybe my confidence wouldn't be, it'd be a little shattery, because you want to make sure that whatever you say is hitting the button rather than someone saying, no, that doesn't resonate with me at all. Tell us a little bit about that experience when you first had that first one and how you felt and all that.
Yeah, everyone's so different within that. I know many people who, they turn off their brains, so they just go, it just kind of happened. And then some people are very cognizant of what their brain is doing while that's going. Again, it depends on the personality. And so, like, definitely my problem was I couldn't get my brain to turn off for, a good portion of my life. So now I can turn it off, even though I very much have fun with it. But yes, when I was practicing with other people, and let's say, this is before I became professional, and this was before I became more serious in it. And I was just going, this is a part of me, and I'm aware of these certain things. I would practice in a way where people wouldn't know per se. Like, I would talk to them about their life, and I would just be like, oh, like, you seem like a really kind person, like, the type that, like, maybe did your grandparents raise you or something? I'd like put it into stories, right, and get them talking. And so, like, I would get validation, and I would read people's energy in a way where I was just conversating with them. And that's how I would mostly get away with it. And it wouldn't be like any eyes on me. And then as I was like, okay, well, I have to like represent myself in a way where people know that, this is happening to a certain degree. I didn't make it an emotional thing at first. I was like, hey, can I just like guess the color you're thinking? Or can I like guess something about you? Like, I try to make it like a fun game, and I wanted it to be very evidential because I did felt like very on the spot. I was really concerned about ethics. When I first got into this, I actually got into it because I was like, maybe I can debunk it to prove that it's not real. Because if it was real, why isn't this out here more? And why doesn't everybody know about it? Because it only helps people. And like, this is freaking amazing, right? Like, so I actually thought when I was younger that honestly people were scamming people more so than otherwise. Yeah. And that still does happen, believe me, but it's like far more people are genuine within this work, and everybody has the ability to grow. It's just society does not teach that, and then people don't think anything of it. I would like practice more evidentially. And then when I got into actually readings and I started getting more comfortable, then I started dropping into like, let me talk about your emotional state more. Let me talk about your life more. So I had a transition with my comfort level, but I always had the focus of let me get something for you so you know it's real, and let me get something where like I'm truly seeing a part of your energy.
My guest this evening is Steve Spur. Steve has more than 20 years plus experience as a psychic medium. He connects people all over the world with their loved ones in spirit to bring messages of love and hope. As an evidential medium, he gives you proof that they are alive and well on the other side. He shares names, how they died, birthdays, death days, anniversaries, pets, the cars they drove, what they did for a living, personal belongings, conversations, and stories that no one but family and friends will know. He is a remarkable man with great talent. Please welcome to the show this evening, Steve Spur. So let me backtrack a second here. Did you, when you had your concussion, did they ever declare you physically dead?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I consider it a near-death experience.
Okay.
But they just said it was a severe concussion.
Yeah.
So when they're doing the MRI and they're doing the brainwave deals and they're going like, it's irregular, that kind of thing.
Yep. And so I used to think for the longest time that my gifts came to be because of trauma.
And that happens a lot.
Yep. And I say to most people, you don't have to have severe trauma. Sometimes you can have little bouts of little tiny traumas or things that aren't as real severe, and they just kind of all add up. And then I got to the point where I started to do research and learned about our brains, rewiring itself, going into a different safety mode, or rewiring itself because something might be damaged, going into a different, I don't know, whatever it is. Did they ever say to you when you had your concussion that your one part of your brain that it was before rewired itself into something else within your brain?
They didn't say it. The doctors didn't, but I don't think the doctors believe. I know it did.
Yeah.
Okay. And my psychic ability, everybody's psychic. Everybody is born psychic with a sixth sense. Mm-hmm. Animals do. People do. You just are. And you feel things sometimes. And it scares a lot of people. You don't want to believe that you have this skill. You know who's on the other end of the phone before you answer it. Mm-hmm. You know who's knocking on the door before it happens. Mm-hmm. You know some things that are going to happen, or you know about, and things like that. That's all on the left side of your brain. Mm-hmm. Okay. Your right side of the brain is what you memorized in junior high and high school, and all. It keeps you breathing. It keeps you going. Mm-hmm. The artist and the creative people are all using the left side of your brain. Mm-hmm. I believe that when my brain was rewired, they gave me the ability to hear dead people, mm-hmm. that something switched. People can do it taking psychedelic drugs, okay? And your brain chemistry changes, and the electricity in your brain, and then all of a sudden you got a gift that you didn't sign up for, you didn't think you signed up for, mm-hmm. okay? And you got this ability to talk to dead people like I do.
And we hear of these things happening in various ways all the time. Some people, I was just asked this recently if I had ever an electrical event, because I went and had a regression done, because obviously I'm a beacon. So right. Wherever I am, something is coming to me or happening to me, and I recognize that it's not something out of the normal or whatever. And so I was asked if I had ever been hit by lightning. Some people get hit by lightning and die immediately, and maybe they come back, but then all of a sudden they discover they have these wonderful gifts, or what we might say is annoying gifts. Because then there was a time, though, Steve, when I said, well, you know what, maybe it's my genetics. Maybe my genetics are just so good compared to, and I believed that when I was younger, because guess what? I had no reference back then about psychicness or paranormal or anything like that. I just thought ghosts were something you saw on TV. But, so there's all kinds of different types of events that can occur that can wake up your brain in a way.
You go through a deep depression.
Exactly.
Having someone so close to you die, and you're in such a deep depression.
Yes.
There's no pills, there's no talk that's going to bring you back. And that person you were close to comes back to communicate with you, to tell you, hey, it's okay. It's going to be all right. And then, I know a bunch of mediums that happened to them after a bunch of loved ones died, and all of a sudden, hey, they can talk to dead people now. So let's help some other people talk to their departed, and give them hope, and know that they're not alone in this life. Everyone on the other side can see the good, the bad, and the ugly, everything that we're doing, So be careful how you're talking. And do you want to talk that way in front of your grandma? Because she's hearing it all now, baby.
Yeah, that's the one thing I try to tell people, too, is that when someone is on their deathbed and they go into a coma, or whether they are unresponsive, or they appear to be unresponsive to the point where they can't speak anymore or communicate in some way, be very, very careful, because they can still hear you. You may not think that they can hear you, because they might be, they're giving these snoring sounds and all that. They can hear you. They're going through the death process, which can cause that once in a while, these disturbing noises that come out. But the thing is when I have a question for you, though, too. Obviously, you're a tremendous lighthouse. And do you ever find that your abilities kind of come and go? Like mine, they come and then they go. Sometimes they're stronger, and then sometimes it feels like I don't have them anymore. And sometimes they come back Jack, what do you experience?
I think just because I studied with the best mediums for 7 years before I went out on my own and started reading for people, I set a bar that my energy's always on, regardless. I'm going to get a decent reading or whatever. Phases of the moon, Venus, Mercury, retrograde. I have the best readings during thunderstorms. There are other elements out there that even raises my energy level or my connection level that I don't even know why that happens. But at the bare minimum, I'm going to go up to my level that even when I'm sick and I have readings scheduled and I know they've been counting on them for so long, and I start reading people, it's like I'm not even sick. It's like my energy level is just at this high level because I'm talking to spirit and they're giving me the energy to talk to the dead people. And then after my readings are over, I'm back dead with the cold. I'm going like, oh my God, I feel so lousy. How's it that when I was doing my readings, I was up, and feeling so great? So I know that happens. When you were talking about people on their deathbed, I was in the hospital room when my dad was dying, and I saw him mouthing like he was talking to somebody, and all of a sudden he reached his hand out and he kissed the hand that he had grabbed. And I'm going like, who's he talking to? And I'm doing a soft focus with my eyes, trying to see the spirit. And it's my grandmother that's there to receive him to go over to the other side. And it just kind of blew my mind, to see that happening in living color, while I'm there. And it happens to tons of people, and people that when you go into hospice, the nurses will tell you all the things that happen, and the people, they can see your loved ones at the end of the bed and they're talking to them and stuff like that. It's common occurrence to nurses that work in hospice, And it happens all the time. So when you sit and believe it, when your loved ones are dying and you're sitting around the bed going, and they're telling you, oh, I see my dad's coming for me, or I see my wife's coming for me, and they're reaching out. You tell them, go, go with them, and it's going to be fine. We're going to be okay here.
Thank you for watching and listening to Paranormal Latte Podcast. We have been broadcasting on the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio Networks, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans, as well as several listening platforms. The content, music, and creative sound effects as heard on Paranormal Latte Podcast are copyrighted and licensed commercially to Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz. Please do not reproduce in any manner without the express permission of Dr. Kelly Renee Schutz, Diamond Point Entertainment, LLC, Paranormal Universal Press, LLC, Paranormal Latte Podcast, and or any affiliated networks such as the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Networks. The opinions and information expressed by the guests, hosts, and sources as heard and seen on the Paranormal Latte Podcast are not necessarily those of Diamond Point Entertainment, LLC, Paranormal Universal Press, LLC, Paranormal Latte Podcast, and the United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Networks, as well as their producers. Although the content of the shows may be interesting, the information and opinions within are deemed for entertainment purposes only. Subscribe to continue your enjoyment and interest, and thank you for making Paranormal Latte Podcast part of your day. Now that was good.